Oblast with Don and Kevin is a show where we share opinions and interviews about topics that interest us. We generalize a lot, and we do realize that some of the topics we touch on, there are people on the fringes that are not part of the group we are generalizing. In order to spare the listeners having to hear us constantly caveat our conversations to recognize that there are other groups and opinions out there, this is our blanket statement stating just that. We know. Also, we are not on any side. We are not left, right, good, evil, up or down. The purpose of the show is to both provide entertainment and also to expose you to new ideas and opinions to cause you to think, research, and form your own opinions that you can share with others. We very much thank you for listening. July 12th, 2021. This is Oblast with Don and Kevin. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Don.
Yeah, so I do those video console videos.
Does it work?
Yeah. And every time I start it, I'm like, this is Will It Work? And I'm Kevin. And I've said that now well over 230 times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of introducing myself. I just feel like I have to do it because a lot of people on YouTube are going to find those videos piecemeal. Right? They're not going to find my whole like subscription list of things because there's no way they're going to run across my page. You know, they're going to search for a console and they just so happen that my video is going to come up on one of the more obscure ones and they're going to click on it and they're going to be like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, like, what does he got? Right. What does he know? You know, why is he doing this? This is dumb. You know,
right.
And I want to tell people like the reason for this video is because we're trying to see if these work, not to do some kind of, because YouTube's full of those retrospective videos, you know, there's like, they show the console and there's like cartoons and lasers and shit. And there's some guy with a voice being like, oh, when I grew up, I got this console and I had these 40 games. And, you know, then that guy probably worked really hard on it. He probably spent weeks building that video. I'm not trying to compete with that guy, you know, like it's not what I'm about. Now, would I put together a retrospective video? I don't know because I feel like, do you care? Like I think what's maybe more interesting, and I'm not there yet, and I'm not doing this in this series, but I think would be more interesting for a lot of people was talking more about game console potential. Like people have always sort of sat there and said like, you know, PlayStation's better than, you know, N64 or whatever, you know, you know, Sega Dreamcast was better than PlayStation, whatever. And you know, when you look at some of the more technical stuff, it gets kind of interesting. Like, and I don't think a lot of that is talked about in a lot of the retrospective videos, where that people just kind of talk about the games and the history of the console and stuff. They don't really break down sort of the highs and lows of the hardware. And I thought maybe down the road that might be something. Now, I'm not saying nobody does it. I know it's the internet and there's somebody doing it, but I'm just saying like maybe that would be something a little bit more entertaining for people. Cause like, for instance, like since I'm on this topic and we're just talking shit on this show this week, folks, the N64, right, was designed and in such a way that it was on paper much more powerful than the PlayStation, right? It was it ran at like 100 megahertz or something, but it was using like this MIPS processor, and that was just like the main processor itself, and it also had like this really powerful graphics 3D rendering engine, right? That had all of these advanced features in it that like PlayStation and all these other like 3D consoles didn't have many of. And so on paper, it was just as powerful or more powerful than a similar PC that was available at the time, like that you could have went out and bought new, right? Where a PC was probably back then, it was about $2,000, right? To get like a decent Pentium PC with a good graphics card. And the N64, again, on paper, was more powerful than that. And unfortunately, though, what's kind of interesting about it is that while it did have like this great, like sort of like hardware processor and everything, it had some really slow ass RAM. And that caused it to have certain things that were just too slow, right? And it also had a really small, what they call a cache. So like when they would try to like do textures in games where like, you take like a 3D object and then you put like a pattern on it, right? They had to make the pattern really large because, there wasn't a way to make it like fine detail because there wasn't enough room in this cache. So you ended up with these like really sort of large, sort of blocky looking graphics. So it looks like shit. You know what I mean? And now if you're an N64 fan out there, if there's any of you still left at this point, I'm not knocking the N64 at all. I had lots of great games on it. I'm just talking about some of the deficiencies with the hardware because that console had the potential to be that sort of groundbreaking, like, paradigm shift where it comes out and everybody's like blown away, like, oh my God, this thing's incredibly powerful for a console. But it wasn't. Because this RAM that it had was so slow, and people will knock it, and they'll be like, "Well, it should have." The problem with it is that it should have had a CD, right? Because PlayStation had a CD, and Saturn had a CD, and Nintendo wanted to go with cartridges. Well, thank God they did, because that was the one smart move. Because the RAM inside the system was so slow that what developers ended up doing is they stored all of the stuff on cartridge memory because the cartridge memory was faster. So they could pull it out of that cartridge memory. If it was just a CD, they couldn't do it. And the console all those games that everybody loves would have been worse because it was like the fill rate was incredibly slow and the frame rate was crap. And so it's really kind of fascinating. I'm not going to get into all of it right now. I mean, there's actually people out there that talk a lot more in detail about it. But if I was going to make a video about why these things were, why the PlayStation was so like well tuned and the N64 had these like great things on paper, but then in practice, it just didn't come together right, And so for Nintendo's credit, they did do a lot of things and tricks and everything to make it so it was performant enough. And there's like many, many, many good games for the N64, but it was really difficult to program for because you had to do all these tricks and because you had to use the cartridge's RAM to supply all of these like textures and things that would normally be in the system's RAM. It ends up sort of making the cartridge more expensive and you end up losing room on that cartridge for other things, more sound, like more dialogue, more video segments and that kind of thing. And so, then that makes it again. So you go back and you go, well, that makes CD seem better because there was more video and digital audio and all that sort of stuff. But it was more of the deficiency of the N64's design. And had Nintendo maybe had another year, and they could have polished it the right way, it really would have been something more incredible than it ended up being. Still a great system, but it's just one of those things. Like think about it this way. I think like the PlayStation had 3 or 4 megs of RAM, but I think like 2 megs of RAM were mostly usable. So most of the games, going off of memory, folks, don't stone me. I'm just doing this. This is, off memory. But I think most games ran in about 2 megs of RAM inside the system. And, and they got a lot of use out of that. And you got to remember, these are lower resolution. This is back when we had, no high definition TV. We're all using regular, 4:3 CRT monitors and television sets and things like that. So, your graphics aren't that high res. So, textures aren't going to take up that much memory. So 2 megs is kind of a lot. And if you look at the N64, it starts you with 4, it started you with 4 megs of memory, and then you could add another 4 megs. There was like a 4 meg expansion on it. But all of that RAM, that 8 megs of RAM versus 2 was basically useless. I mean, it wasn't completely useless. They used it, but it was just like, it was so slow. In fact, I read, or I saw in a video, I think I saw in a video that maybe I read it, that at one time with that RAM, when it was like, when they were still working on the system, when you shut it off, like when you said, I'm going to shut off the N64, take the cartridge out and put a different cartridge in, the RAM was so slow that it would take 30 seconds for the RAM to reset itself before you could play it again. So if you turned it back on, the RAM still had junk in it. Like it was still taking its time clearing itself before you could play the next game. Like that's how like pokey slow it was. And, it was like one of the first times where they had this sort of, on paper, it would have been really cool because it was the first time where like all of the different hardware components could access the RAM independently. So rather than going through the processor to get to the RAM, if you were the video coprocessor, you could go directly to the RAM. If you were the sound processor, you could go directly to the RAM. So this allowed you to pull resources out in different areas to really make things, more dynamic and fast because you weren't slaving the processor down, being sort of like a what do they call it, a North Bridge. But anyway, but because it was so slow, it was like, nah, we'll just pull all that from the cartridge. You know what I mean? And the RAM itself, like it doesn't even much matter. So that's kind of just interesting. It was just interesting stuff. And I think like if I was going to do something, maybe not doing it off ad hoc like I just did, having the facts and showing that sort of thing, like showing the details of what was going on and as to why, how it was competing against the PlayStation. Like how was the PlayStation better? And then show like where it wasn't always better. Don't get me wrong, but show where it did things right and where the N64 was struggling. And then I could do the opposite. There was lots of things that the PlayStation was struggling on. Only had 2 megs of RAM, for instance, and it only could hold so much in texture memory.
Right.
Versus like the N64 and what they were doing right, And, the N64 introduced the analog controller, and then all of a sudden Sony's like, everybody buy a DualShock, which, if you think about it too, that's like one of the very few times when a company said, we know you've got the base console, but you now need to go buy this $60 controller to play the new games. And the developers embraced that and supported that controller throughout the rest of the life cycle of the system. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because like a lot of times you buy that extra controller or whatever it is, and it only works on a few games, and then you're back using just the regular one. Because like the developers are like, I'm only going to write a game for the people that have all the people that have the controller, right? I don't want to exclude people from buying my game, so I'm going to make sure that like everybody can play. You know what I mean? But the DualShock was so necessary at that point in 3D gaming that if you had a PlayStation, you basically had to have one at some point. Like there was no way you could just stick with that D-pad and the 4 buttons or whatever.
Well, that's what's funny about the DualShock is like, because I play my the first PlayStation games, I can play those on my PS3. So I'll put in like Red Alert or Road Rash or something, one of these old games, but I got the DualShock controller and I'm sitting there moving the sticks around like, how come this isn't working? How come this isn't working? And then it's like, oh, the D-pad. I got to use the D. It's like,
right.
And now I'm sitting here like, who uses, because usually it's the D-pad you go to first.
Yeah.
But then once they switched over to DualShock, then it was just like, it reversed, and I was just like, "Oh, I got to use the D-pad for this game." Oh, okay, it's an old game. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And then people would be like, "Well, the D-pad's better for these kinds of games and stuff," but I'd still find myself like using the stick for most everything. Like you could switch between them. In the beginning, there was a button you could turn on and off the analog. And you could switch between them. But yeah, I almost always just stuck with the digital because I was like, it was weird going back to the D-pad. Now the D-pad is basically ways for you to like select different weapons and shit.
Right. It's not even anything to do with movement.
It's like this, like, light a torch, push up. It's like, oh, okay, I guess.
And
whatever.
And that's the thing is somebody's playing and you tell them, you're like, you got to push up. And they're like, where? on the stick, or do I got to do it on the D-pad? Do I got to do it with the right stick, the left stick? Do I got to use,
It's got to be so daunting to come in to video gaming cold, and be handed one of those controllers just because there's so much going on with it. If you've never held one in your hand and you're like, what do I do? Like old people are like that. But I mean, even young people, if you've never experienced it and it's your first console or something, you're probably like, it's going to take you some hours to figure out this whole movement thing.
I was sitting at my girlfriend's yesterday. Honest to God, this happened yesterday, I think. Yeah, she went to go do a DoorDash or whatever, and I was like, "Well, I got my PS3 over there." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to play a video game while she's gone." So I turned on the PS3. I'm like, "No, what do I want to play?" And I was actually looking for Road Rash, and I was like, "No, I can't find it." And then I said, "Oh, look, Wing Commander 3 with Mark." Right, it was the third one that had Mark Hamill, right? So I was like, "Oh, Wing Commander 3," and I was like, "I should put that in just for shits and giggles, just to put it in and revisit it and maybe fly a mission or two or whatever." And then I pulled the sheet out for the controls on how you control everything with the controller. And this was before the DualShock, when it first just had 2 sticks. It was just 2 normal sticks, the 4 buttons up top, the 4 buttons in front.
Yeah.
That game had so many different controls back in the day when we would play it.
Right.
You'd have to like reach your hand. You got to let go of the controller, reach your hand over, hold this button, push this button over here. Like you literally had to be like all over that. And I was like, I sat there and looked at it and was like, I really don't have time to figure all this back out again. It's not like a game you can just pick up and play, because it's like they actually use the select button for something. You know what I mean? like a game that tells you to use the select button. You're like, where's that at? Like, I don't know where that's at. Oh, this button. Like, oh, that's that one button. This game used that button. This game had so many controls. They were like, we need more buttons on this controller. We need a something so you could play this.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, there's.
We came a long way from Atari. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, for real, it's amazing in some ways that like the one button joystick thing lasted as long as it did. Like on the computers too, like the Amigas and the Commodore 64s and everything, they had the ability to do a lot more, and that they still let you just play most games with one button. I mean, they did things where it's like double tap was worth, did something rather than single tap, or holding the button down. Yeah. And then a lot of times you could use the keyboard on computers, but yeah, no, you're right. Like, it's just amazing controls took that long. And then, yeah, it was controls in general. They had to evolve. I mean, from you look at like the Atari was the joystick with the button. And then when you got to the NES, you had the gamepad design there, with the 2 buttons. Yeah. And then, then it became more of a 3 button to basically
6.
Yeah. 4 button to 6 button, and analog sticks and triggers and bumpers. Right. And,
I mean, remember the old ColecoVision was a handheld controller,
right?
Remember
right.
They had one of those where the joystick came out the top.
Yep.
And it was just like you're looking at it like, how do I hold this? Like, what the?
Yeah, they didn't know what they were doing back. They were like, we know you want to use the keypad number pad thing, so we're going to give you that, and you can put overlays in there. But that was dumb in a way, because for most games, you only push like 1 or 2 player or something. You know what I mean? Or you only used it rarely. So the rest of the time you're holding this big chunk of plastic in your hand, and you really wonder sometimes how they engineered things. Like, did they actually sit down and try it? You know what I mean? And maybe have a discussion afterwards. Like, yeah, that's interesting, Steve, but it's not really comfortable. You know what I mean? Right. Like,
the guys at Intellivision were sitting there like, you know what? I like that controller you guys built. That's really nice. Like,
the disc,
I get it.
And the buttons are really hard to push in, and it feels good.
We'll make it like a TV remote, so you got to hold it like a lightsaber. You got to have one hand above the other, and it's like you got it in your lap, and you're just sitting there like, what the hell?
And then give it that kind of phone cord that's trying to pull it out of your hands the entire time. Because everybody likes that, that kind of thing. No, I agree. It's the
kind of cord that springs back on you.
Just yeah. No, but the history of gaming is interesting, and understanding the competition and why things were the way they were is, I think, maybe a bit more interesting than just talking about the history in and of itself. But I also think there's just a lot of people out there that talk about games, and that's good. There's lots of history about games. I'm just not that guy. I don't care about all the nuances in video games. I mean, I play them and I enjoy them, and I never found them all that interesting, like as I did the hardware. I've always been interested in the potential of hardware and how far you could take it. And games, they would do that, but I don't know. The whole, it's also one of those things where, like, a lot of game developers and publishing companies and things are very draconian. They don't let you know anything about it. Like, you can't interview their people. You can't, like, you think like if you were on in a magazine or something, because I did all this for a while, you think you could just call up a place and be like, hey, can I talk to one of the developers about that? You cannot do that. Like, they will not let you talk to the talent that they have, because they don't want you to, they don't want other people to know basically who works there, because they might get cannibalized, right, by another company.
Right.
Yeah, there's big names like, the Carmack and, the American McGee and all those kinds of people. But, yeah, the multimillionaires aren't going to necessarily get cannibalized, but your regular guy that's working on, Jet Moto Racing or something, you're probably not going to be able to talk to that guy. And so you don't get a lot of history. And that guy's not going to sit there and tell you, like, let me tell you what kind of crazy bullshit happened with this game. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to get fired. He can't do that. So, it leaves you kind of hoping and waiting for somebody to eventually write a piece or write a book or something on it about the internet and stuff. It's kind of like, how the Xbox, I think I mentioned this before. Maybe I was talking about it when I did the Xbox review, but like, the Xbox had that red ring of death problem, right? Like they all burned out after a certain amount of time. And I've read some really good articles about, what happened, you know what I mean? Based on like what people know and who talked to who, but I don't think there's ever been like an official kind of breakdown in terms of like what really happened here. You know what I mean? Like, like when did Microsoft know and how bad was it and what kind of numbers are we talking about and why did that happen anyway? Like, was the quality control just that fucked up that every single console eventually would shit the bed? And, why couldn't people just figure out a way to fix it at home? Like people would try different things, like they'd wrap it in towels or, try and solder on a better cooling system and all this kind of stuff. But it didn't seem like any of that stuff like took, right? Like it seemed like there was something else going on there. And that's the kind of history that would be really interesting. Like if, and again, folks, I don't read the entire internet. I just want you to know it's big. I can't read the whole thing. If there is something out there that is that definitive, I apologize. I haven't read it. Okay. But I'm just saying in general, I don't think it is. And you could also talk a little bit about the PlayStation 3 in a way too, because the PlayStation 3 was like, it was a great system and it was like the Swiss Army knife of consoles. Like Ken Kutaragi wanted that thing to do everything. Like play Blu-rays, DVDs. He put in like in the beginning, it was like there would be like all these different memory card, like compact flash and Sony memory stick. It had infrared fucking things on it. And it had ports on the back for every kind of thing. It was HDMI when, the 360 wasn't HDMI at that point. 360 was like, we're not sure about this HDMI thing. Sony's like, yeah, put the HDMI on there. Give it the hard drive. Make it, and you kind of wonder like, what was going on at Sony at that point, because, all of that, all that little stuff costs money. You know what I mean? Like it costs money to the end user buying the system and it costs money, for the company, providing it because most of the time they sell these consoles at a loss. And you wonder like if somebody was like, Ken, do we really need like the compact flash port on here? Like, I don't think anybody's gonna, do you, are you questioning me? You're fired. Like, I don't know. Everybody's always smiles in magazines and stuff. You don't know how these people are in real life. But I just wonder sometimes, like they eventually, they said, because in the beginning, PlayStation 3 didn't sell that well. Like I think they had to wait for Gran Turismo to come out or whatever for it. Because it was expensive as shit, man. It was like $500. And then like, and they said to Ken, listen, we don't want you to do this anymore. This cell processor thing was kind of, it was a lot, Ken. So we just think maybe you should just quietly just work for the board of directors or something, but you're not going to design consoles anymore. And then they sort of like, created like, lower cost units and everything, which everybody does, but they didn't really do that, too much. And they certainly, like with the PlayStation, only had one, and that came out right at the end. They kept stripping things off of the original PlayStation. But they kept the basic design until the very end when they had that PS1 that was like the kind you could just like stick in a car basically. And PlayStation 2 had a couple of different models, but PlayStation 3 was like they immediately started chopping shit out of it. They're like, yeah, this backwards compatibility, like that's great, guys, but we're not going to give you all of that anymore. We're going to take one of the chips out, and then basically we're just going to software emulate it after that, and because you guys don't really care, and we're going to put it in a cheaper case, and we're going to give you less USB ports, and we're going to take this compact flash thing out. Does anybody use the infrared? Really? Do you use the remote? Maybe we'll keep that. We're not sure. I mean, they just started stripping the shit out of it because, everything costs money. But boy, when they first launched that thing, it was crazy how much shit they shoveled into that and to make it work. But anyway, those are the kinds of stories I think. Just if you had the inside ear on that, it would be really interesting to know what was going on in Sony at that point. Anyway, I don't want to keep talking about video games, but hey, you know what? We didn't have a lot to talk about this week, and I found something. So
yeah, I was gonna say you could just keep going and wrap it up.
Kind of, just talking about video games. I want to talk a little bit about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I wanted your opinion on some things. I know we talked about it a couple months ago, 3 months ago or something, about maybe where it's going and everything. And now that we've had like 3 of these TV series, right? We've had WandaVision, which I thought was okay. And we had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I'm not done with it yet because I don't think it's that great. It's kind of, it's, I guess what it is I don't care about either of those two characters that much. I think that's what I don't think the stakes are very high, and I don't care about the enemies that much.
And they don't mix them well.
Yeah.
They don't put those two together. They put those two together, not as foes or as enemies or anything like that, but there's that uneasy tension between the two of them because the one guy knew Captain America back in the day and the other one is
right. It just seems real. And I know there's a bigger story here with the other Captain America / U.S. agent or whatever you want to call him.
John Walker.
Right. But this whole like other terrorist group and everything and the super soldiers. Yeah, it's just no. I mean, it's good that you're all on it and watch it. That's
no, I know it all. As soon as they say it, I'm like, I remember them.
Yeah, so somebody's got to be on the ball with this stuff. It's just that the second one I don't care that much about, but it's okay. I'm still watching. I'm just getting through it slowly. But I have been watching Loki, and I think Loki's pretty good. I mean, what's his face that plays Loki? I can't think of him right now. Hiddleston. Yeah. He's just got a type of, he's just interesting to watch. You know what I mean? Like he's a good actor. Like he plays the character well enough, he's just the kind of guy that he has that kind of charisma about him, like he's interesting enough to watch while all this stuff's going on. And then of course it's got,
Wilson.
Yeah. Oh, no. Owen Wilson, who's always kind of interesting. At least half the time you stare at his nose and you're like, is his nose broke?
Yeah,
like what's going on with that nose of his, But you know what I'm saying. Like it's kind of entertaining. But what I was thinking more about was like, okay, so Captain America left, the guy that plays him, and he's done. He's done. Like he doesn't want to do it anymore, basically. And any of these guys, like, I'm sure if the dollars are there, they will come back, right? Yeah. But I think Disney's not necessarily going to try and get somebody too old to play Captain America, right? Now, I have heard that Robert Downey Jr. is most likely coming back in Iron Man 4, although in what state he will be in, maybe he's going to be a Jarvis, or maybe he's going to be a ghost or a past thing or on a video screen, or a computer. Right. I don't think he's going to come back as Iron Man. You know what I mean? Maybe he's going to pass the gauntlet down to a younger kid. Because I think he's coming back one more time kind of thing. Like, they're going to pay him and he'll take it. But I don't think like he's like, this is going to be another 3-season arc. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think he's basically done. So there's a question mark over Cap. There's a question mark over Iron Man. Black Widow she's done. Right. She said, this is it. I'm not doing another one. So the question mark over her, although let's be honest, if they never did anything else with Black Widow, nobody would care. Like, I mean, we like Scarlett Johansson. She's been entertaining in all these movies and everything. She's, but the character itself is just not that.
It's one-dimensional.
It's not that interesting. Like, it's no elder god from the wastes of the universe is going to come looking for her. You know what I mean? It's always going to be some shield fucking thing or whatever that we've had enough of the TV series. So that one I'm not too concerned about, but she's out. Now Thor is still around. Hiddleston is technically dead, but maybe we'll find out tomorrow or something if he's going to ever come back on the regular Thor universe. But it seems like they're going to keep Thor going for a while, which they can because
Jane's going to be Thor this year.
What's that?
Jane Foster's going to pick up.
Is it? Is that what it's going to be?
They're going in the direction of the comic books where they have a lady Thor.
Yeah, and Doctor Strange is still here, right? He's fairly new.
Yeah.
But we lost the guy that was Black Panther, right? So are they replacing him with somebody? Or
yeah, I mean, they have to. I mean, they're making a second one. So they got to, I mean, I don't know if I'm not saying they're replacing his character with somebody. I think they're just putting somebody else in the suit, as in like Killmonger or, somebody from the movie itself,
right?
Like his sisters. Like there's rumors that it'll be Shuri, or it'll be Killmonger, or it'll be so and so, or it could be this guy, or it could be that guy. It's just like, listen, I get it. You could just recast him. You know what I mean? Just leave Black Panther like Black Panther. You just have to recast him. It's something you can't.
I think like with the whole we talk a little bit about this, and I'm not going to get into a big rant about it or anything because I don't care really that much about it. But I think like if you're sticking with comic book lore and because there is a female Thor, right? Fine, makes sense. You know what I mean? Right. And there's lots of lots of variations with a lot of characters that they've done like that, and I don't really care. I just think like as long as the storylines hold up, I guess is all I'm saying. Like if you're going to go too far over, like you're going to start coming up with like, how Disney does stuff. Like lately they've been doing it well. I'm not complaining, but they can get a little too Disney. And then it gets like, I don't want to watch it. Like the last 3 Star Wars films got kind of, they were just putting too much, you know what I mean? Like you could just see they were trying to sell toys and they were just shoving little cutesy characters in there and horses and shit. And you're just like, I know what you guys are doing, and it's that's not why I'm here to watch the film. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be in the story. Like, it's got to make the story work. And like the Boba Fett thing, right? Like the child or whatever, Gurgurt or whatever the hell his name is, or Gogurt. Like he was part of the story, or she, whatever the thing is, and that works. And then they could sell like a bazillion Baby Yodas to all the kids out there,
Right.
And so do it like that, learn your lessons, do it like that. Don't do it like the Star Wars films because their movies are shit. I mean, for the most part, I know I'm making somebody upset, but they're not good. Those last 3 weren't good.
Right.
But anyway, back to Marvel. So we got Doctor Strange. Ant-Man's probably got another one coming, right? Because he's going to have a trilogy, right?
Quantum Mania.
All right. What about Mark Ruffalo as Hulk? Has there been talk about his status? Like, is he going to keep doing Hulk, or have you heard anything about that?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. These are the rumors that I've heard.
Okay.
There's going to be there's the She-Hulk series that's coming out on Disney Plus.
Yeah, that could go either way.
He's supposed to be in that, Mark Ruffalo.
Okay.
So
cameo or full time?
Yeah, not as because she's got to get the blood transfusion somehow.
All right. Yeah.
So you know what I mean. That's her cousin. So he's probably coming back for that.
But before you switch gears on that though, let me ask you one question. What do you think the chances are that we'll see a Gray Hulk, Red Hulk type of thing in the Marvel?
That's what's going to come next. That's what I was just going to say was allegedly. Everything I'm saying is rumor because that's all I do is read these stupid. I see the headlines and they're just like so and so. It's like I got to read this. So allegedly he's going to come back for the She-Hulk series. They're going to do that to start that up, and I guess he's going to go back into Dumb Hulk, or he's going to go back into He's not going to be Smart Hulk anymore.
Is he Smart Hulk now, or
yeah? Endgame is Smart Hulk.
Oh, okay.
Where he's standing there, looks like the Hulk, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's going on?
Oh, yeah, you doing?" Okay, yeah. I don't know. Endgame seems to leave my mind all the time, but yeah,
right. I know it's quite different from all the other ones. So he's going to switch from Smart Hulk and he's going to go back into Dumb Hulk, whether that be gray or red or whatever, something like that. The rumor, like the biggest rumor going around, is that the two brothers that did the Captain America movies, they did all these movies, the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
The biggest rumor is that they loved, as a kid, they loved Secret Wars.
Mm.
So now they're saying, how can we put together a Secret Wars movie? So
That's
allegedly,
the Arrow guy. It's not Hawkeye, is it? Is it Hawkeye? Which one? Because one's Marvel and one's DC. What's the guy with the arrow? Green Arrow? Is it? No, Green
Arrow's
DC.
in DC.
Hawkeye's
in
Marvel. And that guy's got some kind of problems in Hollywood, right? So he's not going to come back.
Yeah, but they don't need him for.
No, I know.
Secret
Just
Wars.
one more guy I'm talking about that's like not going to make another showing. Don Cheadle looks like he's going to die any day now. He's probably not.
Oh, I know, right? That guy looks all messed up. The this Loki thing is supposed to allegedly bring in Kang the Conqueror.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's supposed to be the next big bad, because in Quantum Mania he's supposed to make an appearance there.
I always thought that was just like a Conan the Barbarian ripoff, really. But yeah.
What, Kang? No, you're thinking of Cull.
Oh, okay.
Kang the Conqueror, the blue guy. He's
okay, yeah.
blue
right.
with the green and purple outfit.
All right. Oh, that makes better sense then, because I'm like
he came from the future, went to the past, became a pharaoh, and
yeah.
all that. Yeah, that guy, Nathaniel Richards, Reed Richards' great grandson or some shit.
Related to Apocalypse or something.
Yeah, but he's supposed to be coming in as the next big bad. He's going to be in the Ant-Man movie allegedly. They can I think that's who they're going to introduce here at the end of Loki, because they put all these clues in. The Renslayer was Kang's girlfriend in the future or something like that. The smoke monster. Altheon or Lithian or whatever it was called.
Well, so this is interesting
Loki.
what you're saying. And I wonder, Don, do you think like maybe they're kind of like going more along the lines of, we did the Avengers and the Avengers is kind of done. And now we're going to do these other ones, like not done forever, right? Because they're going to milk this shit, till we're all dead. Although I don't think they're going to do what Sony did and just reboot constantly, you know what I mean? Like 3 Spider-Man and all that.
No, they just change the characters.
But I'm wondering, like, are they really going to make a whole nother? Or are they? Maybe they'll do West Coast Avengers or something. You know, like they'll do different characters. I mean, Marvel's got a huge library of characters, although there's the main ones are the most popular ones that we've seen. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to like replace like Hulk and Thor and Iron
Captain
Man.
America and Iron Man. Yeah.
Captain America, right. But at the same time, it's like they've had good success with things like Ant-Man, et cetera. Like if it's written well, people go see
right. Guardians of the Galaxy, stuff like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the major rumors about Secret Wars is that's how they're going to bring Iron Man and Captain America back. Because the Beyonder will be like, I need the greatest champions, and these were 2 of the greatest in their history, so let's bring them, and he'll like revive them and make them themselves again.
But they'll be different actors, is what we're saying.
No, I mean well, maybe they will, but I would assume it's going to be Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah,
but
then you got to get them to exit the show, you know. And the other thing too is they got X-Men now. And
right, and that's going to be the next thing. Fantastic Four. There's a Doctor Doom rumor about Black Panther 2.
And they don't need to do that. They don't need to do Fantastic Four. I mean, I know they could do it right, but they don't.
Yeah, but that's the thing is the villains in the She-Hulk series are rumored to be the Wrecking Crew, Thunderball, Bulldozer, right. Stupid Head, and what's his face.
Yeah.
All these characters that they're bringing in all of a sudden are all characters that were in the original Secret Wars. That's all I'm putting out there. Doctor Doom, Kang, the Wrecking Crew, She-Hulk, Fantastic Four, the X-Men.
Yeah, but I mean, so far none of that has happened. I mean, I think
none of them have come in, but they have.
I think She-Hulk is definitely happening because I've heard that too. But I mean, the rest of it could just be a lot of speculation.
No, they're all rumors. Anything that's coming out of my mouth is a rumor.
Yeah. Why not Secret Wars? I mean, they got to do something. Although Infinity War was, I mean, that was a lot of tricky contract work, I think, for Disney. To see them continue to do that, they could. But is it going to pay off? I don't know. I mean, Joss Whedon now, everybody has ostracized him, and he's in that whole Me Too thing or whatever. So, there's other issues there, too, trying to build on that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, listen, not every movie's going to knock it out of the park. There's certainly going to be there's going to be some stinkers eventually. You can only do so many of these origin stories before people start getting tired of it. But I think that they've been doing a really good job of keeping people still watching these superhero things. But yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't want to ruin. I'm not going to ruin anything.
No, you don't know anything, right?
Well, the Black Widow movie just came out. This I do know.
Oh,
this is for sure.
Yeah,
the Black Widow movie just came out. The end. There's an end credit scene, like all the other Marvel movies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, this movie was made 2 years ago. It was supposed to be released 2 years ago.
Right.
Turns out the end credit scene was supposed to come out before Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh,
because there's somebody in that from that series.
Oh, okay.
And let's just say they're building a team.
Oh.
So like what you were saying was, they got to bring in different guys or they do different things. They're doing it. That's already set.
Yeah, I think, and I think that could work for a while, without alienating too many of the original cast members, and keeping them on the back burner. Yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see what they do with it. I don't want Disney to screw it up. They've done such a good job.
Right.
And it seems like Star Wars might be. The Bad Batch wasn't too bad. Did you watch that at all, the cartoon?
No, I don't watch any of those cartoons.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's like they seem like they're trying to keep to stories that are more mature, but at the same time not trying to be offensive. You know what I mean? Yeah, like that's a fine line, because if they do make them for kids, then people aren't going to want to watch them. Like kids will, I guess, because why not? But they're not the ones paying the Disney bill, basically.
Right.
And eventually the parents are like, I don't watch this. I'm gonna lose it because I don't want to watch this shit. And so they got to kind of make shows that adults want to watch. And so far it's working out. But the other thing is like length of these things. Like I think Loki's only 5 episodes.
6.
6 is it? And I think Winter Soldier wasn't very many.
That was 6 as well, I think.
WandaVision was maybe 6 too, or 8.
Something like that. Like 8.
8 is okay. When you start getting down to like 5 and stuff, it's just like a long movie. Like it's just like you just took a movie and you cut it up into 5 episodes.
Well, but that's the thing is, if you watch those shows on Netflix, those were going 13 episodes, and some of those shows, as good as they were, Daredevil and Punisher and all that stuff,
yeah, right?
There were episodes where you were just like, "What is this?" Like it was like a completely different story. You know what I mean? There was always like one episode in the Netflix series that was just like, why is this? Why did you even throw this in here? Like, what does this have to do with anything?
Yeah, that's filler in general on most TV shows. But it's like I think
it's okay to do 6 episodes a season as long as you do more seasons. The young ones were only 6 episodes a season.
Yeah,
or was it 4?
Well, no, I think it's okay. It's the wait between seasons, right? Like there's shows that are, like if you wait a year, okay, but I don't know. It's like it's good that they're putting on a new show like as soon as the other one goes off the air. Like, hey, we've got another Marvel show, So that kind of makes it good. Because I think if you watch five episodes and there was just nothing, you would just be like, well, Disney Plus was interesting, but I'm going to cancel it because I don't care about bed knobs and broomsticks.
Yeah.
And Netflix always, Netflix is ridiculous. There's like a new show every week, and I can't watch shit. It's almost like every day, and it's like I don't know what any of these things are. It'll be called like the Green Onion or something. I don't know what this is.
Footsteps on the floor,
right? And then it'll try to show me some preview of it. It'll be some old lady like yelling at a woman with brown hair or something, and I'll be like, I don't know what this is. I don't know I don't care. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like people to recommend things to me and everything like that, until I know something. Like I'll watch Black Summer season 2 because, I watched Black Summer and that was great. But, so Disney, it's kind of like it's sort of like the same thing. They make new shows, but I Disney has the curse because every time they introduce something, I'm always in my head going, yeah, it's for kids. This is going to be something for kids. You know, this movie or something with her and that, and it's just a kid's film. Like I don't know. It's just not. But if you got family, if you got children, I don't knock it. You know what I mean? Watch something with the kid. It's just I don't, and so to me, it's not all that interesting. But the Marvel stuff is interesting. What do you think now? Daredevil, coming back.
Rumors. In the next Spider-Man one, he's supposed to allegedly play. Matt Murdock will be playing his lawyer.
That Charlie
Cox.
Charlie Cox.
Yeah, allegedly. That one's been back and forth. That one's been like, yes, he's going to be showing up in Spider-Man as Matt Murdock and maybe as Daredevil.
It probably has to be true. The only reason I say that is because have you seen Charlie Cox do anything else lately? Like,
no.
Right. No. So he's probably working and he's probably doing Daredevil. Like, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise we probably would have seen something else from him.
He's a good Daredevil too. I liked him.
No, so. I agree. Like, he's the best of the 4 series that we're on. Although I didn't really like. Jessica Jones was an interesting character, and if they get better writing, Jessica Jones could still be a good character. Like, Jessica Jones was not your usual superhero or fighting, superhero types. She just had something that was a bit more unique for what she was. She just wasn't a superhero. She barely used her powers. You know what I mean?
Right.
She just was living in a world where there were some other superpowers, and then she would have to use hers. So I always thought that it didn't always work. Not every, like you said before, there were episodes in there where they didn't need to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she certainly had a lot of those. But I thought she was probably the second most interesting of the 4. I actually liked Iron Fist more than Luke Cage. And it's not, I thought Luke Cage had an interesting, like the first season was pretty good. I just didn't like him. And I've talked about this before. That guy, whatever his name is, I just don't think he's a good actor. Like, he has one tone for every emotion. When he's angry, when he's sad, when he's happy, he's talking in that low voice with the no expression, just real boring. Yeah, just real fucking dull big dude. Like, it just not, the Danny Rand was a whiny a-hole, you know what I mean? But like he was at least trying to act. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I accepted him as a whiny a-hole versus somebody that was just completely like a block of wood.
You know what you may have had with Luke Cage, maybe you had a better script with a lesser actor.
Yes.
Whereas Iron Fist was a worse script with a better actor.
Yeah, because Luke Cage had that really interesting nightclub thing, and they
had a whole thing going.
They had like those good R&B bands playing, and then when you had the I forget what they were called, the Snake Guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the Serpent Society.
And the first guy, the
Cottonmouth,
he was really good. Did that guy win like an Oscar later for like that other movie with the
Green Book or whatever?
Or something like like that guy's great. Like, it was amazing he was in this fucking thing.
Marshala Ali. They wanted rumor has it that they wanted him for the whole series. But he could only sign on for so much. He had so many other movies to make.
Yeah.
That he could only sign on for so much time. So they were like, okay, we'll kill him by the 6th episode.
Yeah, I mean, he was...
Spoiler alert.
He made it worth watching. And then, like, I've always said, like, you could have just watched Luke Cage to the point where he died. And that would have been enough. Like, you didn't need, like, Diamondback or whatever and all that to come, because it was okay. You know what I mean? But it was like... It kind of lost its luster, and then the Jamaican voodoo dude or whatever in the second one, like I mean, it's just I didn't care about any of these people. Like, I just didn't feel it. Like, this guy is also like, he's like invulnerable. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really boring guy. It's just,
I was watching that series and I was just like, okay, it's interesting, it's good. I felt guilty watching it because I don't know, Harlem. I don't know. And I'm white.
Guilty.
Which is weird, you know what I mean? I'm like, I feel like I should. I mean, I feel bad for all this bad stuff that's happening, and you know what I mean. I'm like, I should, whatever. But I got excited because they were like, it's Cottonmouth, and I was like, ooh, the Serpent Society, and like that was a major group, you know, of people who took things after. And he never dislocated his jaw and ate anybody or nothing. And I was just like, well, that's dumb. And then they killed him, and I was just like, oh, that's dumb. And then they're like, we're doing Luke Cage season 2, and Diamondback's showing up, and I go, oh, I remember her, that redhead girl. And they showed who it was. I was like, that's not a red-haired girl.
Right.
That's another dude.
Right.
This ain't the Serpent Society that I know.
Right. No, I mean, I didn't know all that, but I mean, it just, and believe me, I didn't care for Iron Fist either. The second season was also very messy.
That one was just as bad.
Yeah, and
it's shorter.
I think maybe Iron Fist was kind of a more interesting character than Luke Cage, just because, he had this training and he had this power that was kind of, most of the time he's just doing kung fu, and then he could kind of summon this, the fist or whatever to do something. Yeah. But there was a lot of magic going on there, and that could have gotten, along with the whole Doctor Strange thing. You know what I mean? Because they're almost kind of from the same place, really. Yeah. And there could have, in that Marvel Cinematic Universe, that could have worked to some degree. But yeah, I don't know.
They ended it stupid too. That second season of Iron Fist, because they didn't tell you anything. They just like all the shows had been 13 episodes, and you're watching the second season of Iron Fist. And if you hadn't paid attention, if you didn't look ahead, like I didn't, I wasn't looking ahead to see like, oh, how many episodes? How many is this? I was just like, screw it, I'm just going to watch it. It got to the 9th episode. I'm like, all right, here we go. And then it got to the end, and it shows the two of him and his buddy, and he's got guns now, but his buddy's like the Iron Fist, like the rich kid that he was fighting in the first. And it's just like, and you're looking at it, you're like, what the hell was that all? Well, I got to see the next episode to see what this is all about. And then you go and you look and there's nothing. You're like, wait, what? That was it? That was like the whole season? Like, what's going on? It was really, I don't know. I don't know who was doing that one, but they don't need to be doing superhero stuff.
I agree.
Poorly written.
So we got about 10 minutes left. I recently got the new Halloween album, actually. Have you heard it at all?
No.
Listen to it on Spotify or anything?
I have not.
It's not bad. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet. What I normally do with, I buy everything on vinyl. Because I get, I have Spotify, I can listen to the album. You know what I mean? Like digitally anywhere. So I just buy vinyl because I like the artwork, and I'm not going to justify why I do what I do, but I just try to. And what I do is like, when I'm getting ready to go out or something, I'll put one side of the record on, and I usually play new records. No matter who makes the record, I will usually play each side 3 times, because the first time you listen to it, you're more or less like, you don't know any of the song. You know what I mean? Right. Any of the songs, they're all strange. And, you're just kind of like listening for maybe parts where you're like, well, maybe that's kind of interesting, but I'd have to listen to it again, kind of thing. Yeah. And then, by the second time, you kind of remember some of it. And around the third time, I know whether I like a song or not. I know where the beat is, I know where it's going to hit, I know where the bridge is going to be at, and what's interesting about the song, or what's not tight, and all that kind of thing. So, I mean, I do that a lot, and that helps me listen to a lot of music that I wouldn't normally listen to, because I'm forcing myself to, even if it's something I'm not that into, I'll play it 3 times. And then there's sometimes I'll take it off and I'll be like, I never want to hear that again. Right. But the new Halloween's pretty good. They're using all the original singers, and, I don't know how they figured out what they were going to do with the musicians. You know what I mean? Maybe they wrote different songs or something. The liner notes are in that cursive kind of thing, Yeah. It's like, I'm old now, and reading that shit is hard.
You go listen to that podcast I told you about with them on it.
Yeah.
With the 2 singers. Yeah. They'll tell you, they break it down. They're like, oh yeah, well, we did it with this guy, and this guy was doing this, and this guy, they tell you all about that.
All right. I'll check that out. Yeah. If people out there, if you listen to Halloween, like if you're an old person like us and you listen to Halloween when, you were younger, you definitely should go on YouTube and watch, when they were at, the Wacken Festival or Wacken Festival, couple years ago. They come out and they perform with the 3 singers, right? The original Kai Hansen, who's also the guitarist. Michael Kiske, who was the one that most people know, you know what I mean? Because he was when the more commercial success. And then whatever the last guy's name is.
I forgot his name already.
Right. But he's been on
Andy.
he's been on like the last 10 albums or whatever they've made, since. And then they also brought back, all the original guitarists. And they do a really good show. It's a really good show. I mean, it's filmed really well. It's on YouTube. It's not like some guy holding a camcorder in the audience,
Right.
It's really well edited and everything. And it's free to watch, and they play all the old songs.
It sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good. It's actually like one of the better concert things to watch, and especially if you hadn't heard any of those songs in a long time, you'll hear them and you'll be like, yeah, I remember this song. At least that's how I was. And if you've never listened to Halloween, I don't know if that's a great intro to them, but they're a power metal group. But they were uniquely German in a way because they were also like upbeat a lot. Like they sang like the beginning stuff with Kai Hansen singing was maybe more about the destruction of the earth, although they sang Guardians and things too. And that was.
Gorgon will eat you.
Yeah, there was stuff that was maybe more fun or upbeat, but definitely they continued a progression towards writing songs that were a happier kind of power metal. And unfortunately, then they kind of got lumped into or they chose to be a more of a comedic band, I guess, right after Keeper 2, because Dr. Steen did good money for them. And so they're like, we'll make an album, Pink Bubbles Go Ape, and it'll be all funny and stuff. And everybody's like, yeah, we're not buying that. Which also, I think, dropped somewhere around the grunge years started out, right? Where every band
like right before that.
Yeah, every band was taking a hit, and they decided to make a really unusual career move that they didn't stick with, thankfully. But then Michael Kiske left. I don't blame him. But, that was due to some sort of band fights or something. And then I bought their next. I never bought Pink Bubbles Go Ape, interestingly enough, but I did buy the next one, which was like something of the Rings or whatever, and it wasn't bad, but it had the new singer on it, and I just, how it was back then. Like you'd hear the new singer or something, you'd be like, yeah, these guys are done, because there's lots of bands that did that. You know what I mean? Yeah. They'd break up and put somebody else in, and they'd like, we're going in this new direction and stuff, and you'd just be like, it's not the same, guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's not good. But
that's
maybe I was unfair in a way. Maybe I should have given it more of a chance. I don't know.
That's how I was with Iron Maiden. So I remember a kid coming into Marco's when I worked there, and he was like, "Hey, I got the new Iron Maiden. You want to listen to it?" And I was like, "Not really."
The Blaze Bailey one or whatever.
Yeah, X Factor or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, "Well, no, I'm kind of a Bruce Dickinson, Paul Di'Anno kind of guy."
Right.
That's how I remember Iron Maiden. I don't really think, but I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to like one or two songs and just being like, just go ahead and shut it off. I'm like, it's not that I hate it, but it's not Iron Maiden.
Right. Judas Priest maybe did the smartest thing when they went and got somebody that was basically like an impersonator, you know what I mean, of Rob Halford when they picked up what's his face from Akron. And that served them, I think, enough to keep going until Halford came back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's necessarily thinking like, well, those ones where Halford wasn't in the band were their best years.
Good stuff.
Judas Priest is funny too, because like Judas Priest was like, people always talk about like how Black Sabbath, brought the sound of metal and everything, and that's true, I think. But Judas Priest was also cutting shit really early back then too. You know what I mean? Like they were just like, let's throw down some metal and wear leather and shit. And who knew that the lead singer was gay back then? But whatever, it was they were heavy for the time period.
Yeah, but then you listen to it now and you're just like, that's not heavy.
Oh no, it's like
that's just rock and roll.
Right.
That's just loud rock and roll.
Right. It's just attitude. It was just rock and roll attitude. But
he had to fight for the rock.
But he also had a good voice. That's the interesting thing about both those bands. Like Ozzy and Rob Halford just had great voices. That's what helped carry those bands too.
Well, think about this. Look at Journey.
Right.
Journey is a band that had a specific, and I get it. Not a lot of people, everybody's like, oh, Journey, blah, 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 whatever. Journey was a great band. Okay. They are good. Like their songs are good. Whether you like them or not, I don't give a shit. I like them. But you had a singer that was so unique that when he left, they were just like, we can't get anybody else, because if we get somebody else, it's not going to be Journey. You know what I mean? It's going to be something. It's going to sound like something. And it's just like Jeff Tate not being in Queensryche, but Journey went out and they got somebody who sounded just like Steve Perry.
Right.
And you know what? And that revitalized them, because the people were just like, oh, you know what? They got a new singer, but hey, guess what? He sounds just like fucking Steve Perry. Well, let's go.
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, you do, because that's what people want to hear. You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to then try to come up with all new hit songs when people have this expectation of what you sound like. You know, if you're going to keep the same band name and everything, it's going to be rough. You know, and that's what's good about like that Hey Yeah band or whatever with the Pantera dude left. Like, hell yeah. Sorry. It wasn't like he was going to be like, yeah, we're just going to keep calling ourselves Pantera. You know what I mean? Yeah. It would have been ridiculous, you know, like, thank God, you know, they didn't do that. It's like when at some point you just got to be like, all right, we're not that band anymore. You know?
Look at Quiet Riot.
Right.
The only original member is Frankie Bonelli, and he's the drummer. So it's not the guitar player. It's not the singer. It's nothing that a drummer's a drummer. You hear drums. Drums are drums.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can tell like a different guitar sound from somebody. You could tell a different vocal from somebody. This guy's like the only original member of the band, and they're still going out and touring. He's like, yeah, we're Quiet Riot. And it's just like, no, you're not.
Right.
You're not. You're just like a bunch of dudes doing Quiet Riot
It's
songs.
like those two LA Guns, right? There were two LA Guns. Like, that was ridiculous. Like, Jamie Guns is in one of the bands. You know what I mean? Like, it just because the other guy was it doesn't make any sense. Like, there doesn't need to be. Yeah.
And I saw the LA Guns with Phil Lewis, the singer.
Yeah. I think the Rip Burnoff, I think.
Yeah, it was like years ago.
It was good. They were good.
And it was good because they had the vocalist.
Right.
Who sounds like the vocalist.
Right.
But Tracy Guns is out doing LA Guns, but he doesn't have Phil Lewis on the vocals. He's got somebody else doing it.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, you're Tracy Guns, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't sound right.
No, 100%. You're absolutely right. Like, the sound has to be right. And
so I stopped listening to Sabotage.
I mean, but you can say, like, even with like singers, like I would argue that like Poison, for instance, like I'm not a big Poison guy at all, but I have heard that like they are much better when CC DeVille is in the band than when he wasn't in the band. Like, I think guitar does matter in certain cases.
Yeah,
like,
in some cases, yeah.
You can't necessarily replace.
That's the two things,
right?
Vocals and guitar. Those are the two main sounds of any song.
Yeah,
because the rhythm section, the bass and the drums is always the same, or it's always coming from the same sounding instrument.
Right.
You know?
Right. Sorry, bass players and drummers.
Sorry. But you know what you call a guy who hangs out with three musicians? A drummer.
But you guys can always move between bands and nobody gives a shit. You know?
Right. That's why you see drummers who are like, I'm in 5 different bands. It's like,
right.
Because you can be. Yeah. You know, you don't have to change nothing.
100%. Yeah. No, I agree. But yeah, Halloween. Yeah, they're the first band I've ever seen do anything like this, where everybody just made amends and they all were like, let's do like the biggest metal show and let's all perform all our songs together. And then afterwards they decided, hey, we're going to cut an album. Maybe they'll go on tour like that. I mean, why not? Why not make some money and do some festivals and things like that? Because it's smart. I mean, will it last? Probably not. You know, like the reasons you didn't get along will probably come out again when you're traveling together and, you know, all that kind of thing. But who knows? I mean, by the end of the day, though, that I'm glad they did it because it sounded really good. And it was nice that a group of guys could not have big egos, you know, to do it for the music and come out and do a great show. You don't see a lot of that.
And it got me back into them. I've been listening to a lot more Halloween lately. it's like the older stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's good shit, you know? Yeah. All right. So that's it for the show. Thanks, everybody. If you've got ideas, we're always looking for them. Please write into oblast@vgn.us. And then otherwise, I'm not going to say anything else. We've got an outro, so you can listen to that. But thanks for listening. See ya.
Peace.
You've been listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. If you'd like to write into the show, send an email to oblast@vgn.us. That is VGN as in video game news. And be sure to check out our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/VGN, where you can get all of our shows, our videos, and some musings. Be sure to tune in each week for new episodes on our Patreon page, or every other week on the public RSS feed that you're subscribed to now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Peace.